Welcome. Here we are at the feast of the most blessed and holy Trinity, that which is so distinctive to Christianity, and still wrestling with John's vision of the gospel. And Gillian, you have some background, but Gillian, John, Esther, all from Otago this time. Lovely to have you with us. Gillian.
Yeah, I think this passage that we've got, these tiny little verses, is so packed full of good stuff. I'm looking forward to what everyone has to say about it. But it's just this little snippet that fits into this massive, big, long after dinner speech that last time I was on this, we were still talking about. Like, this has to be the longest after dinner speech ever, but I would say also probably one of the most important ever. So that's kind of an important thing. This is the speech Jesus is giving after the Passover meal, the night where he's going to be betrayed and arrested, and Good Friday the next day, of course. And I think in all of this little passage gives us a real insight into Trinity. But of course, there is no word Trinity anywhere in the Bible. And yet I think of all the books of the Bible, it's probably John's gospel that gives us the most raw material out of which we have built this really important doctrine that, as you say, is quite unique to Christianity.
Thank you, Gillian. We'll come back to some challenge for you in a few minutes. But John, I want to ask you, when you encounter this passage, this tiny little passage, what do you find challenging?
Well, this seems to be the fourth time Jesus has talked about saying things to you. And this time he's not going to tell them because they're not ready. I mean, can I explain to my 3-year-old granddaughter the road code? One challenge here, I think, is to be open to grow a readiness to desire to hear Jesus. And the second challenge I find is, look, we have in this text a sense of the interrelatedness, the connectedness, the unity of the Godhead. And a challenge for me is to not launch into exploring a doctrine of the Trinity. I think the challenge for me here is to listen to the text. What is the text saying? Like last Sunday night, I heard a wonderful sermon from a man in Melbourne who was asking of the text, what is Jesus saying about prayer? We've got zillions of books on prayer, but what is the text? What is Jesus saying about prayer? And for me, a challenge here is to actually listen to the text.
Very good, and thanks for that. And I've heard one scholar say quite simply and quite beautifully, it's the language of love. But Esther, what's challenging there for you?
Yeah, well, building on that and thinking, for me, not just of the text here, but of all the imagery we have in the Bible for the Trinity, I feel like I have a real challenge with the language the church uses now in lecturing, not what we've been given in the Bible, and really the language we don't use, because we have this lovely the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and we sometimes move it in our Anglican liturgy to create a Redeemer, giver of life, gender neutral, and we've got lovely stuff about the Father here in this chapter of John, but all through the Bible and in John itself, we have all of the other members of the Trinity given female imagery. So like I think of John 3, chapter 3, where we're being born from above, or 1 John is even more explicit, born of God. I don't like to be too gender prescriptive, but in my family, it was always the mothers who gave birth. So, you know, and we've got Jesus compared to Sophia all the way through. But that's really hard. I long for a time when we're really comfortable in this language in the church, where if you searched hymns for Trinity Sunday with female imagery, you'd actually get some answers, you know, and this kind of thing. So yeah, that's my challenge.
And absolutely. And as a male, I find it deeply enriching. And stepping outside John for a moment, we've got that mother hen image of Jesus looking down on Jerusalem. I find it really deeply warming. But it's not about me. Gillian, I want to hear your challenge when you encounter this.
Yeah, well, I was along the same line as Esther, really. And, you know, there you go. Jesus, the mother hen, God, the mother bear, or the eagle, and the Spirit like a dove. I mean, you've got so many diverse ways of doing Trinity. I really find it difficult when we just stick so narrowly without even going into the breadth and depth of imagery that's in the Bible itself. We don't have to go anywhere else but there. But I think also, for me, one of the challenges is, I know this is a challenge that's been there for 2,000 years, but which is what kind of practical illustrations to try and explain when a class of 13, 14, 15-year-olds asks you about this relationship. And we've got apples, we've got shamrocks, we've got water that's ice, we've got all kinds of things. I mean, I'm a mathematician. I love, 1 times 1 times 1 is still 1. But, they're all flawed. But I think that's one of the challenges that I think is also going to be a good news, but we'll get to that.
Well, we will in a minute. And in fact, we will now, because I'm going to go to Esther. And you've given us a very important angle on this, but where's the good news?
I just loved, I won't say that when I heard Trinity Sunday was available, I emailed and begged Dan to let me come on, but it was, it's just so beautiful. And what's beautiful for me is that our God is a community, is a relationship, not just loves, but is love, going back to 1 John. And Elizabeth Johnson is one of my favourite theologians of the Trinity, Sister Elizabeth Johnson, and she just has this awesome quote: "Not an isolated, static, ruling monarch, but a relational, dynamic, tripersonal mystery of love. Who would not opt for the latter?" And that's where I'm at too.
We can always pack up and finish there, but that is powerful stuff. Gillian, let's go to you again with this good news here.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's the good news that really appeals to me, and maybe more so as I've got older, is that there's mystery at the heart of our faith. I mean, this is a central kind of doctrine, and yet it's mystery and it's sort of beyond comprehension. And I love that it's this kind of telling the truth, which is in this passage. If we just go back to the passage for a second, it's all about the spirit of truth, and yet that truth is kind of something that's more about catching your breath or your heart beating or tears falling than it is about the kind of rational, logical trying to explain something. And I just find that having wonder and mystery at the heart of our faith is actually really cool and really good news.
And one of the things I learned, little glimpses that I worked with Aboriginal people, is we as Westerners have wanted to compartmentalize, and that's kind of denuded the trinity of that mystery. But again, John, for you, some good news.
Well, good news for me is that Jesus said he would send the Spirit to us. And the promise is that the Spirit will guide us. I mean, do you ever get lost? I mean, we need a guide from time to time. Blessed be God for Google Maps. I get lost in Christchurch, which is a foreign city. I got lost in Melbourne last week, and Google makes that. But anyway, the Spirit is the promised guide and will guide us into all truth. I mean, all truth, says John. Well, is that cosmological, environmental, economic, sociological, medical, scientific? Well, maybe, because the Spirit is the generator of all truth. But I think the good news here is it's focusing on a personal truth, opening us up to, as Gillian said, to the wonder, to the mystery. Here are the disciples heading out into unknown territory without Jesus. Where are we going to go? What shall we say? How safe will we be? What do you want us to do here, O Lord? But for us, how can I see you more clearly, follow you more nearly, love you more dearly? The Spirit is here to lead us into the fullness, the embracing love of the Father that is made concrete in the presence of Jesus.
And I'm enjoying this conversation so much that I'm not sure. Esther, have we asked you a bit of a so what there?
You haven't asked me so what yet, and I like that question. Yeah, well, look, I mean, I love what John's saying there, because I think the way that the Johannine community understood that Jesus was saying that the Holy Spirit was going to reveal even more and keep revealing, it is very beautiful. But also, if God is love, if there's this sense of community and whānau and manyness and oneness in God, and it's the God who came and became a human in Jesus to be with us and to be with creation, then that's a really radical call on our lives to live completely out of love and right relationship. And there's almost no bottom to what that might call us to do, really. So yeah, that's kind of the challenge to me as I look into any area of life for us, is that we're trying to do this through the call of this God who is the God of love and community.
Okay, so that's so what for you in your context, Esther. And John, I want to hear a bit about back from Melbourne and lots of traveling. You've got your Google Maps, so that's a bit of a so what. What else?
So what? How open are we to the work of the Spirit? I mean, can we get anxious like the disciples? We too live in a world that's both indifferent or even hostile to the gospel. But how open are we to the Spirit who will teach us, who will witness with us, who will guide us into authentic truth to speak of Jesus? So what? The Spirit is the communicator. We hear in this text, I think. He speaks of what he hears of the Father, and he will tell us of Jesus. So are we listening? How are we going to listen? So the so what is a call, I think, to stop, attend, pray, read the scriptures, be open to the wisdom of others, follow the hunches, and that we may be faithful disciples and attend to this bottom line wondrous reality that is the presence of God infusing our reality in the power of the Spirit.
I'm finding fascinating that we're using many words here which precisely aren't kind of categories. They open up the conversation about the Trinity and the Spirit. And I find that really encouraging, heartwarming. But let's hear from you, Gillian, as we kind of wrap up with, again, out of your context, your life and your work, your so what as you encounter the Trinity and this passage.
Well, I think two phrases that really struck out for me when I was doing some reading on this was, first of all, that two-ness, which is, that binary thing, male, female, heaven, earth, all of those kind of binaries that we have in our Western world, is ambushed by threeness. And I loved that phrase that, in God, our kind of hierarchies, our binaries just get ambushed by this threeness or this multiplicity. And I think, this is a so what, this is a challenge, this is a good news all wrapped into one for me. And then the other phrase I came across, which I really loved, was it takes two to tango, but three to be divine. And I thought that was kind of cool in the sense that kind of dance that of the Spirit, or that dance of us with the divine, I think really does give us pause for when we're being too dogmatic about something, or we're insisting on something, or we're not open to other ways of doing things. I think the Trinity is a really important central doctrine because of that for me.
Well, we're dancing with a triune God, and I find that a really deeply heartwarming notion, really very genuine. So thanks for being a part. It's a beautiful conversation and a lovely subject, this Trinitarian God of ours. John, Esther, Gillian, thanks for being a part of this, and look forward to seeing you again.